Welcome to Bollox Talks and Tangents. We're back. We missed last week because of that bitch.
That bitch.
Nicole
flooded my damn neighborhood.
Nerve.
Good Lord. May I just say?
She was quite moist.
She was moist.
Okay.
We used to have these storms once every couple of years. No, once every 6 weeks.
Yeah. No.
What the hell are we doing?
Ian made me angry.
Yeah.
Aggravated. Totally turned my house into an island.
Yeah.
6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm done for the season. I take all the blockers, all the guards around my house down. What happens?
Yeah.
A November hurricane.
Yeah, but climate change is not real. Don't worry about it.
It's real.
Oh.
Well, climate change is real. I just don't know whether or not humans started it. So that's the whole
Crazy.
thing. Because we've been around for a long, long time. I don't know if humans started it. So that's the part. That's the part I can't prove. But
I'm going to blame
climate
the English.
change and seawater rise is real.
Israel.
If you don't believe me, live on Riberia. So
Or in Davis Shores.
hey, yeah, we live in the two worst spots.
We do.
Yep. So, but glad to be back.
Delighted to be back.
It's wonderful to be back. We got a great show today.
Great show today.
And I want to say thank you to our sponsors. And I got to say thank you to a very special sponsor, 900 Degree Pizza and Pasta. The owner also owns Cheshire Custom Auto Repair. This week they came out and they saved me and Blake. Blake's truck needed a new alternator. They came out, picked us up, took care of it. It's running perfectly. Chris, thank you so much for doing an amazing job.
So not just pizza.
No. Cheshire's, they're entrepreneurs. It's a family of entrepreneurs.
Clearly.
So they have Vibe Energy Drink. They have 900 Degree Pizza. They have Cheshire Towing, and they have Cheshire Custom.
Wonderful.
So, I mean, they are local business, support local here, and that's what our sponsors are all about.
Yeah,
that's why I wanted to throw it out there. So
yeah, and great people.
Right.
And the sauce on their pizza is phenomenal.
Oh, it's so good. So good. So I'm going to let you talk about City Gates.
City Gates. Ladies and gentlemen, City Gates Distillery, St. Augustine Distillery. I have been working my way through all of their different bottles over the last couple of weeks, and I'm a happier person for it.
Oh, yeah.
They make great booze. They're right downtown. The nicest people on the planet. All of our sponsors are incredible people.
They're nice people. And I don't know why they hang around with us. We're pretty much their only flaw.
Yeah, I would agree.
Everybody has to have a vice, and I guess we're theirs.
There you go.
But today's whiskey of the week is actually called the Saint.
The Saint.
It's the Saint bourbon at St. Augustine de Bourbon, and I've tried pretty much all their bourbons, and it is my favorite bourbon that they have over there.
The Saint.
The Saint.
Wow, that's high praise.
Yeah, it's quality bourbon. So
fair enough. I'm gonna have me some of that in a little bit.
I'm gonna have a sip right now, and we need to talk about Abare, Kresge and Associates, best accountants in town. They help me all the time with all the businesses. Some of you don't know this, but I have a couple businesses.
One or two.
One or two.
Yeah.
And they kind of have to all have their own individual stuff, and it makes my tax returns very challenging.
Yeah, if you have a business, if you're opening a new business, if you have an existing business, if you just want someone to do your taxes, these are the guys, Abare, Kresge and Associates. They keep Troy out of jail. That is no mean feat, I assure you of that.
Well, and if you have a quality accountant, they are worth 3 times what you're going to pay them.
Yeah.
If you try and do it yourself, they're going to save you money. They're going to give you an umbrella of protection.
Yeah.
And you do have to pay them, but it's still a savings in the long run.
Yes, it is.
Huge savings in the long run. All right. Meehan's. You know those guys?
I've heard of these guys.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Irish bar.
Oh,
downtown.
Is that where they're from?
Yeah.
That's why that guy talks so funny?
It is. It's odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look it. There's a great business right downtown. Right downtown, overlooking the bayfront. 3 bars in one.
Yeah.
You get out the back bar. Fantastic. Just sit out there, listen to the music. Hubble will serve you the drinks. Upstairs, Johnny Oyster Bar. You can get some of the best oysters you'll ever have.
Best view.
And the best view.
Having a cocktail, one of the best views in town. You're sitting right there out on the porch. It's just a wonderful thing. You're looking across the bay.
And then at night, late night, downstairs, inside,
the pub,
belly up to the bar. Just perfect.
Yeah.
Best pint of Guinness in town. And Reggie Maggs, a gent. And he's really fast at running 5Ks too.
Did he do okay?
Surprising. The dude is fucking fast.
Is he?
Yeah.
I'm not. I was at the back of the pack.
I'm going to say 23:40, 23:50.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, fast.
And at his age, he's like 90.
He's 102.
102.
Yeah.
Man, you Irishmen look good.
Thanks.
Yeah. You Irishmen look good. All right. Speaking of looking good, come out Wednesday night to the Beacon listening room and learn about some trivia stuff.
Trivia and, of course, comedy.
There's
Comedy.
There's comedy could hit at any time. And Gypsy Cab Company right there next door. They're sister restaurants, as I guess what they would call them.
I love sneaking out there. I can come out through my neighbourhood across one street, and I'm at the Beacon. It's a great place now. It's one of my favourite places for a late night beer, Friday, Saturday night. I don't have to go too far. Staff is incredible. Wonderful food.
Best music on the island.
Great music. Yeah. Top class. And
do-
Frank does a great job. And Frank's kid plays soccer with my kid, so I like that a lot too.
Frank and Kendra have completely renovated the kitchen at Gypsy.
They have a Gypsy, yeah. It's
And
bigger, it's better.
They made the Beacon look like a new place. It used to be the corner bar. The Beacon's looks like a brand new place.
Yeah, it does look like it.
We were slammed there last night.
They're busy every time I go in the place. It's brilliant.
Slammed there last night. All right, St. Augustine Pirate Museum. Cindy and their staff over there, they do an amazing job. They also run the Colonial Quarter there. They're just gems of people.
I was there last weekend. That's
were you? Oh, you
it's
went?
my third time this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I love the place.
Yeah, because there's so much stuff in there.
There's so much stuff in there, and I love going downtown. Take the boys in on the bikes.
Yes,
we can pop in there, check out the Pirate Museum. There's always different things to find and different things to do, and then from there, we go to Meehan's and we have a drink.
Yeah, because Meehan's has great food.
Yeah,
I had a French dip there.
Ooh, nice.
At an Irish place, I had a French dip, and it was amazing.
Well, we're very fancy now. The Irish,
yeah.
We've elevated.
You're Irish have moved away from
really
just
have.
potatoes.
Yeah.
Just taters. All right. Word origins is where we go to next.
Word origins. Okay. What do you got for me?
So, what I did is I poured myself a stiff drink.
A stiff drink. Oh, I like what you're doing here. Yeah,
Okay?
very good.
I poured myself a stiff drink. So I was like, why do they call it a stiff drink? And I didn't know, but in like the early 1800s, if something was stiff, it was considered strong.
If something is stiff, it's considered strong. Okay.
Yes. So, and that's how it became, and that word only really stuck with alcohol.
Strong.
A stiff drink. So it actually, the word was a synonym for stiff.
Strong.
Was a synonym for strong.
Okay. I like that.
And I had no idea that was the origin of that word, because I was like, oh, it's got to be something. And there's always a backstory with stuff and stuff like that. But if you said something was stiff, like he's a stiff man.
And he was strong.
He's a strong man.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
I never realized that was a synonym that was common
in the 18th
language.
century.
Yeah.
Holy moly. So,
yeah, I mean, and it came from England. So it's close to where you were at, those guys over there.
geographically close.
Geographically close.
But that's the only way we're
Culturally
close.
not.
Culturally not.
Not. So, but you never heard of it as
I did not know
a
that.
synonym of being strong.
Never.
Okay.
So here's one. I was yelling at my kids the other day because I was trying to get them out of the house to do something. And, herding cats is the only thing. But I was yelling at them to get their act together.
Get your act together.
And then it dawned on me, I was like, okay, where the hell is get your act together? Like, make a plan, carry it out, get organized, get your act together.
Yeah.
And of
I'm
course,
assuming it came from theater.
it comes from theatre.
Okay.
Absolutely. It comes from the 1960s. And that's it. It just comes from when actors who are nervous or actors who are messing up their lines, the director might pull them aside and say, get your act together. Mm-hmm. Simple as that. Mm-hmm. And it was first entered into print in the 1970s and very, very quickly came on. It's one of the most common phrases used in England, and it's a pretty new expression, 1960s. Yeah.
Wow. Huh. Okay. All right. So this one I kind of knew, but I didn't know because I've had a trivia business for a long time. I've had it since 95.
You know a lot of odd little things.
I know a lot of odd things. So I was like, okay, where did the word trivia come from?
I think okay.
Go ahead. So I want to hear what you think.
So trivia, it's Latin.
Yes.
3 ways. Trivia, and then there's a trivium, which was a tripartite way of learning back in the day.
Yeah, it actually means common.
Damn it.
It's Latin for common. So it's like a lot of times it should be common knowledge.
Yeah.
Trivium is the plural of it.
And it was, of course,
you
trivial.
actually said in trivial, it was considered common, and not until like the 1965 did they start associating it with quizzes and start associating it with. They kind of changed the wording of it, or not the wording, the use of the word.
So I guess to mean like common knowledge, things you should know.
It means like common knowledge. So like in colleges, when they started doing quizzes, they would say, oh, this is trivia. You should know this.
I like that. That's great, actually.
So they kind of shifted the whole meaning of the word, of its origin, of what it was.
Brilliant.
But it was in 1965 is when they first started using it in like quizzes, and associating it with like trivia shows.
Yeah.
So these are common knowledge shows.
Excellent. I like it very much.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, so the other one I came across, I'm an English teacher, and I'm currently teaching one of my classes, Othello. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite lines in Othello is, "Beware, my lord, of jealousy. Mm-hmm. It is the green-eyed monster."
The green-eyed
monster.
Envy.
You're green with envy. So I was trying to figure out why is the color green associated with jealousy and associated with envy? Mm-hmm. So, and Shakespeare used it in Othello, and he used it a couple of years before. Green-eyed jealousy, he used it in The Merchant of Venice in 1596. And it's just taken for granted that green, if you're green, it means jealous. Mm-hmm. But the origin of that comes from the Greeks. And they believed that a jealous person would have a greenish hue to their skin. They believed that there was some kind of an overproduction of bile in your body, which would turn your face kind of greenish. And jealous people had an overproduction of bile, and therefore that's where it comes from. It's batshit crazy, but
and we know that one too.
We know batshit crazy as well. Yeah. So that's where it comes from. Green with envy.
So they thought like it actually turned their skin green if you're jealous.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Huh. Interesting
stuff.
Where do we want to start with Legends of St. Augustine, or do we want to start with the history of comedy? Your pick.
Let's do Legends.
Legends of St. Augustine.
Yeah.
All right. I have 4 written down. I know 3 of the 4. They're personal friends of mine.
Okay.
All right.
I have 4 or 5, and I would say none of them were friends of mine.
No. Well, and all of mine are dead.
Mine are. I've
you have one living one.
I've one living one.
Yeah, one living one,
which is my curveball.
We have to get to that one because I don't even know who your living one is.
Yeah.
And he's a legend.
She's
a legend.
She's a legend.
Oh, that takes us to another legend that we left that I left off. Who wrote The Yearling?
Marjorie Keenan Rawlings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marjorie Keenan Rawlings.
I didn't even have her on the list. And she should be on this list.
Where did she live?
She lived at Ripley's, believe it or not.
That's right. That was her house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
legend. Yeah, she won the Pulitzer Prize for that. I'm going to say 39 or 40, something like that.
All right.
I'm guessing.
All right.
Okay, who you got?
I'm going to start with Frank P. Thompson.
Frank P. Thompson. Thompson.
Yep.
Who is Frank Thompson?
He was the head waiter at the San Marco Hotel.
Okay.
Henry Flagler comes down with his sick wife.
All right.
Meets Frank. Frank's an amazing baseball player. All right. Frank stays the head waiter. Henry decides, you know what? We need better hotels here. The San Marco is a great hotel, but somebody needs to compete with it. San Marco Hotel only lasted 9 years.
Is that the place that burned?
That's where the Renaissance is right now, across from Bollox.
Okay.
All right. So when Henry Flagler builds the Ponce, he hires Frank P. Thompson
because he's a damn good waiter.
He's a good, smart man. All right, and a damn good baseball player. All right. So what Henry Flagler does is he says, "Listen, I have these 3 hotels. I need you to put together baseball teams with all our porters and all our waiters to entertain the guests on Sundays afternoon. I'm going to have my friend Albert Spalding build a baseball stadium for us."
Obviously.
Spalding Sporting Goods.
Sports, right.
Yeah. Albert Spalding was the best pitcher in baseball in the 1880s.
Okay.
Henry Flagler obviously knew him because he knew everybody because he was Henry Flagler. So he had where Rick's Muffler is, a baseball stadium that sat like 1,500 people there.
Okay, we talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about this. Frank P. Thompson ended up hiring all these people. The Negro Baseball League sprung out of the teams that Frank P. Thompson had. The Cuban Giants is the team that Frank P. Thompson created. And he was from St. Augustine.
Right here.
He was from St. Augustine.
So the origin of the Negro Baseball League is St. Augustine.
Yep.
Frank P. Thompson.
Yep. And Rick's Muffler.
Rick's Muffler. You got the fat man. There you go.
So that was before there was US 1, obviously.
Obviously.
So that's the start. He's my one that I don't know.
Okay. So I'm going to give you one. A lot of people probably know this, but Ray Charles, the great Ray Charles, spent 8 years of his life living in St. Augustine, Florida. From 1937 to 1945, Ray Charles was at the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind.
Hated it.
Hated it.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely hated it.
He was a mama's boy.
And he was eventually kicked out. He was kicked out because he was the official report was he was an unsatisfactory student. He was expelled in 1945. But this is where he learned to read and write Braille. This is where he learned to read music in Braille. This is where he began composing. It's where he learned to play the piano. It's where he learned to play the saxophone, the organ, the trumpet, the clarinet. All of these things happened in St. Augustine. And one of my pet peeves about the Jamie Foxx movie, Ray, is that they never, ever mention anything that he did at the D&B.
They mentioned one time he was having to go to school in Florida.
Yeah, and that's it.
And they actually said
St. Augustine,
Florida. That's the only time they mentioned it. And one of the stories I heard about Ray is he hated it here because his mom passed away while he was here.
Yeah.
And he would sneak away on Washington Street. There were basically, not to have a better word for it, but like juke joints.
Yes, there were.
On Washington Street, where St. Francis House is and that area. And he would play there to kind of build up his chops at these juke joints.
That's amazing. I heard a story.
And that's why basically he got expelled because he kept running away.
Yeah, he kept running away.
And he was a bad student because he just wasn't showing up for class. And he lived there. He lived on campus. He would run away and stay off Washington Street, and then they couldn't find him.
Yeah.
That is the way I understood the story of why he got
So I heard stories, and I know they're not true, but I want them so badly to be true. But that Ray Charles used to drive. Obviously blind, but he used to drive.
Yeah.
I want it to be true. I know it's not true.
I don't know if that's true or not.
Apparently they were like, well, his other senses were so finely honed.
Yeah.
You know? I want that to be true. Because if it is true, he was using the fucking force.
Yeah.
Long before George Lucas invented that shit.
Yeah. No, I don't know if that one's true, but that's a great story. Makes for a great story.
When the legend becomes more well known than the fact, print the legend.
Yeah.
All right. Give me another one.
All right. So this one is a very special guy, and Blake, we have posters in the house and pictures with this gentleman in our house, Stetson Kennedy.
I was fortunate enough to meet Stetson a couple of times.
Yeah. And I was fortunate late in his life to become very good friends with Stetson. And what an amazing guy. I mean, if you guys don't know who Stetson Kennedy is, Stetson Kennedy infiltrated the KKK back in the late 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
Okay. And he grew up at Lake Baloozahatchee, which is now a county park here in St. Johns County, where he actually his family owned that land, but he spent a lot of time there. His family was more in Jacksonville than here.
Yeah.
But he built a house there, a Sears house that he bought in a catalog.
A Sears house that he bought in a catalog, and they delivered it there.
They delivered all the parts to him. He bought it in a Sears catalog, and he built that house there. And that's where he did a lot of his writing. So,
just for people, where is that in St. Johns County?
It's in northwest part of the county. It's near Julington Creek area.
Okay.
So it's called Lake Baloozahatchee. It is a county park, and his house that he built, the Sears house that he built, still stands on that property.
So good.
All right, but I mean, he wrote Palmetto Country. He wrote Southern Exposure, Grits and Grunts. He wrote at like 91 years old.
Yeah. I met him in his late 80s. I was doing some storytelling with people, and they introduced me to him, and then I got to tell a couple of stories at events that he was telling stories with. Phenomenal.
He was a great storyteller. He was married like 10 times. But he was always wanted, to the day he died, he was always hunted and wanted by the KKK.
By the KKK, yeah.
But the most interesting thing that he did when he wrote The Klan Unmasked, and that's the book about all the secrets of the Klan and stuff like that. When he wrote The Klan Unmasked, he couldn't really get a whole lot of momentum with law enforcement and some of these other things. So he was friends with the writers of the Superman radio show. #1 radio show in the entire country. So Superman didn't have a villain for one season. And Stetson's like, hey, why don't we make the KKK the villain?
Seriously?
Yes. And Stetson talked them into making the KKK the villain. So you know how many kids were listening to that show would open the closet and realize their dad was a part of the Klan.
Wow.
So there's no telling by him doing that one moment how many minds he might have shaped in the right direction.
That's superb. Oh, that is a great story.
Yeah. So I thought, to me, when he was telling me that story, and one of the best moments of my life was I got to introduce Stetson to George McGovern.
Yeah, because McGovern lived here. That's right.
And George was a big music person. Stetson was a big music person. But Stetson and I were already friends when George got here. George called me and said, hey, I understand you're the guy that probably can get me into Willie Nelson. I was like, okay, I got to know, are you the George McGovern? He's like, yeah, that's who I am. But they had never met each other, even as much as they were fighting on the same fight for decades and decades, and they never met each other until 2008 or 9.
That's superb.
Yeah.
Oh,
and George McGovern, who did live here, we could consider him a legend.
We could, yeah.
So, I mean, he was a bomber pilot, which a lot of people don't know. But the biggest thing that I have great respect for George is George started the free lunch program with Bob Dole.
That's right, because they were both World War II heroes, weren't they?
Think how many kids' lives they changed by just giving them one meal a day.
Yeah. That was a time when they used to actually work across the aisle.
Yeah. They actually were friends.
Wow.
And George always said if Watergate would have happened 6 months earlier.
Yeah, he'd have been president. Yeah, probably true.
He said we would have been legal by then. That was one of the things he wanted to do in 1972. Oh. All right, who you got?
Okay, so I'm going to go with Willie Gallimore.
Oh, okay.
Willie the Wisp Gallimore.
Chicago Bears.
Yeah. Running back. He was a Pro Bowler, 1958. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. He went to Excelsior High School.
Yes.
In Lincolnville.
Right there on, MLK.
Right there on MLK.
On Center Street at that time.
Center Street, yeah.
Yeah.
He went to Florida A&M, drafted 5th round, I believe, and played from 1957 to 1963 with the Bears. Mm-hmm. People said that he could run laterally as fast as he could run forward, right? His number was retired by the Chicago Bears. He wore number 28. And the Willie Gallimore Center, which is all the way down to the end of MLK.
It's located in
Eddie Vickers.
Which I'm going to talk about.
We're going to talk about Eddie Vickers, yeah. So the couple of things I learned about Willie Gallimore. So he was killed in a car crash with another, was it another player?
I think it was another player.
Yeah. Training camp, getting ready for the next season, went off the road in Rensselaer, Indiana, flipped the car and was killed at the age of 29.
Yeah.
29 years of age. But right before he was killed, he was here in 1964 during the civil rights thing, and he was the first black person to be allowed to register at the Ponce de Leon Motor Lodge. He registered as a guest. And he was allowed to because
He was famous.
he was famous and he was a football player and he was from here. And this is the same summer as all the shenanigans were going on here.
Yeah,
and-
Mr. Brock let him stay there.
yeah.
So, all right, Willie Gallimore. So Willie Gallimore, he did die in '64.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you know who the Bears drafted in '64? They drafted 2 running backs because of Willie Gallimore.
Did they draft Gale Sayers?
And Brian Piccolo.
Brian Song. Brian Piccolo.
Brian Piccolo. They were best friends. Gail Sayers. I mean, if you haven't seen Brian's Song, you need to watch it. You need to watch the movie. But the reason those 2 got drafted is because of what happened to Willie. The world would have changed completely if that car accident doesn't happen for Willie.
That's
You never put that together, did you?
No, never, not at
Yeah.
all. Like,
Yeah.
Not a clue.
The Bears wouldn't have drafted in the first round because they already had a Pro Bowl running back.
yeah.
They wouldn't have drafted Gale Sayers, probably with that draft pick, if Willie was alive.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Best athlete ever to come out of St. Augustine?
Could be.
We need to do a show about athletes that came out of St. Augustine.
Oh yeah.
All right.
There's some great ones. The other, you know who sticking with the Bears, you know who the other first round, they had 2 draft picks in the first round. You know who the other one was?
That's that year, 64?
Yeah.
Dick Butkus?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. And on my Little League baseball team was Ricky, who's still a friend of mine. We're still on Facebook. Ricky Butkus, and the sister was Nikki Butkus, and the youngest son was Matt Butkus. So I used to go over to Dick Buck, and I didn't care about football when I was a kid.
Baseball.
I really didn't even know who he was. Like when I was eating at his house, and he had already retired at this point, and I was eating at Dick Butkus' house. I didn't even know who he was. My dad was like, "Oh, that's Dick. You're going to Dick Butkus' house." Yeah. So
excellent.
yeah, but I mean, all that happened in '64, and Willie Gallimore was a part of that whole dynamic of all that too.
Yeah. So
Eddie Vickers.
Tell me about Eddie Vickers.
Willie Gallimore Center's inside Eddie Vickers Park.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are like, why is Eddie Vickers? Because Eddie Vickers isn't famous.
Okay.
Eddie Vickers, unless you played sports here in St. Augustine, you didn't know who Eddie Vickers was. Did you even know what Eddie Vickers did?
No.
All right. So Eddie Vickers and Red Cox, I'm going to do those 2 together.
All right.
All right. Red Cox was the Parks and Recreation director for almost 40 years.
Okay.
All right. Eddie Vickers worked side by side with Red Cox. Eddie Vickers pretty much handled all the black athletes.
Okay.
Down at Little Links, because
That was Little Links.
It was Little Links. It was an actual golf course down there where Eddie Vickers was. So it was called Little Links Park, and there was Malcolm Jones Field and stuff like that. And Eddie kind of handled all that. When things started getting integrated, Eddie was in charge of all the referees. I mean, I can tell you this: Eddie's he's the best sports official I've ever met. He has the perfect temperament.
Yeah.
He has a great eye. He had a great eye for everything, and he's just like, whenever you're officiating, don't take it personal. When they start coming at you, they're not mad at you. They're mad at the situation.
Yeah.
And he understood that better than any other official I've ever dealt with. And I've was a boss of many officials and officiated a lot of games. And it's hard to get, someone calls you a motherfucker.
Yeah.
It's hard not to lose your temper. All right. So, but Eddie was by far, and I was fortunate enough at early part of my career, I was fortunate enough to have Red Cox and Eddie Vickers be good mentors to me. They had already retired. Both of them came out of retirement to work with me on my youth program just to help me out.
Yeah.
So both of those guys, phenomenal guys, legends of St. Augustine. If you grew up here, you knew Mr. Eddie and you knew Red Cox.
Yeah, and Red Cox Road is over by the lighthouse.
Red Cox Road is there, and that's where Red Cox Park is.
Yeah.
So, and that's Red Cox was just a good gentleman. He played minor league baseball with the St. Augustine Saints here, and then had to, obviously you played minor league baseball, you had to have another job.
Yeah.
He took the job as Parks and Recreation Director for the city and then for the county. So
Fabulous.
but he had that job for like 40 years.
Yeah, but when you consider the influence that those guys had on every young person that came through, right?
And they did it right. They did it right. Like,
Extraordinary.
and that's the beauty when I came in at the right generation for me, because I got to see these guys. They cared about the community and cared about the kids.
Yeah.
And it's hopefully one of those things that, like, you know, if you see me around town, it's like, oh, he's one of my kids.
Yeah.
And he's 45 years old.
Yeah.
You know, but he's one of my rec kids. Yeah. And Red Cox was probably the best guy of remembering a person's name or a face. So,
that's
all right, we got one more legend from your side. And
okay, I'm going to give you a living legend.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a living legend. I lived next door to this lady for a couple of years on Coquina Avenue, where I now live again. Bizarrely, I lived at 31 Coquina, and this woman lived at 29 Coquina.
Right next door.
Right next door. This is Romel Petridlou.
Okay.
Romel Petridlou graduated from Carolinas High School in 1952.
She was a mullet. She was a mullet.
She was. She was a prom queen. She married Jimmy Petridlou, good dude. Mm-hmm. She was the first female mayor of St. Augustine.
That's why I know the name.
Yeah, that's who she is.
That's why I know the name. I was trying to come up with why I knew the name. Okay.
And Romel was stone cold wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. But not only that, so she's elected to the St. Augustine City Commission in 1979. She's the mayor from 1980 to 1985. During her tenure is when St. George Street closes to vehicular traffic.
Yeah.
That was Romel's tenure as mayor, Romel's idea with other people on the board at the time.
Yeah, they supported it.
They supported it, and that's when they turned St. George Street into what it is today, which is basically a walking mall.
Tourist attraction.
It's a tourist attraction. But that changed the city in immeasurable ways.
Well, and I have friends, because I got here in 87. I have friends who say, oh, you remember when the street was open? I was like, no.
Missed it.
I don't. Yeah. I missed it by 2 years.
Yeah. So that's Romel Petridlou. But she also with the city negotiated for the land on Ponce de Leon Boulevard for the library up there by Davenport Park. Mm-hmm. Romel, that was during her reign. She also helped develop Anastasia State Park. She worked with the state of Florida to get Guana State Park. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a huge amount of things that happened when she was mayor. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say that she was behind everything. She doesn't get all of the credit.
Yeah.
But
because there was other votes with her.
There was other votes with her. But if you look her up, the list of awards and honors that she has from the state of Florida, it just goes on and on and on. And she's a pretty fantastic lady. She's a great neighbor.
You said her name and it didn't click. And then when you said first mayor, I was like, that's what I should have known.
Yeah.
I should have known. And I have met her a couple times. You know,
yeah, she worked for the Florida National Guard for years.
Ribbon cuttings and different things and former mayor balls and stuff like that I've been to. So I've met her a couple times, but I don't know her.
Yeah, and I think she's 88, 87, 88. Yeah. Amazing
awesome.
Lady.
That's awesome. All right. I do want to talk about one more legend here because a lot of people don't know this legend, but he was just a tremendous impact in the entire world, and that's Dr. Robert Hailing. So I didn't really know the story of Dr. Hailing. I knew what he did and stuff like that, but I was selling a house for Clyde Jenkins. Clyde Jenkins has passed. I was selling a house for Clyde Jenkins' estate and the family. I walk in the living room, you know, like you have to go into a house and take pictures and kind of stage everything and stuff like that. The first picture I see is a picture of Clyde with Martin Luther King in a jail cell. So I was like, I got to know more about this story.
Yeah, no shit.
I got to know more about this story. So Clyde Jenkins, and this story impacted me so much, I made an entire movie about this story. Freedom on Our Mind. It just played at the Fort Lauderdale Film Festival.
That's right. I saw it been advertised.
So when I started doing my deep dive in Clyde Jenkins and Dr. Hailing and two other gentlemen tried to infiltrate a KKK rally in 1963. They were in the plaza. They were announcing they were doing this rally and stuff like that.
In the downtown, the plaza here in St. Augustine.
They announced where it was going to be, and Clyde Jenkins, Dr. Haling, James Jackson, and I'm sorry, I'm missing one of the other names. But the rally is where the 312 bridge is, right there on the left-hand side, that vacant land that's now going to be a park and a boat ramp. Okay. Behind Big Lots.
Behind Big Lots, yes. Okay.
So behind Big Lots is where it was at. 312 didn't exist. US 1 was there.
Yeah.
So there was a big KKK rally there. They were trying to sneak in. They were in Dr. Haling's car, and they got caught. And these guys were brutally beaten.
Oh, they got the shit beat
They
out
were
of them.
brutally beaten. Dr. Haling was a dentist, so they broke all the bones in his hand. They kicked out 11 of his teeth. They basically stripped him down, and they were going to burn him. Luckily, there was a pastor from Ormond, very similar to what Stetson did. He infiltrated the KKK, was wearing a microphone, and was able to get away once they captured him, because they had him naked, piled up like cordwood, going to get gasoline to burn him. All right? But this gentleman was able to get away, go to a payphone, call the state police, and they were able to get there with the county and the state police before the four of these gentlemen died right there. But Clyde Jenkins, Dr. Haling was a part of it. Because of that, Dr. Haling took it upon himself that we got to get this right. It didn't scare him away. It didn't scare away Clyde Jenkins. It didn't scare away James Jackson. And James Jackson's still with us. He's the gentleman you'll sometimes see standing on the corner with a Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter.
Yeah.
We should all get along at King Street.
Yeah.
That's James Jackson.
That's James Jackson?
James Jackson, another legend we can talk about. But Dr. Haling is the force behind why Martin Luther King came to St. Augustine. And he was one that was like, I'm not just going to sit on my hands. We're going to get some stuff done.
And he's commemorated on the plaza now, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, there's a Robert Haling Road.
Yeah.
There's a Haling Park at the end of just past Eddie Vickers Park.
Yeah.
And there's a crosswalk for Andrew Young at the time, because Dr. Haling's the reason that Andrew Young came here.
Yeah.
But if you look up his name, it says he is the father of the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Dr. Robert Haling.
Yeah.
From St. Augustine.
Yeah.
And he lived in Lincolnville.
No. He lived in West Augustine.
West Augustine.
He lived in West Augustine, and when they shot up his house, unfortunately, he wasn't home. Fortunately, he wasn't home, but his wife and 2 kids were home, and they had a female boxer dog that started barking, and the wife was able to get the kids, dive into the bathtub, but unfortunately, the dog got shot when they shot up the house.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the dog's name was Madonna or something like that. It was so the boxer. She was a beautiful boxer. I've seen pictures of the boxer. So, but Dr. Haling changed the world.
Yeah, literally
from right here in 1964 in St. Augustine.
That's fascinating.
And he almost lost his life in September of '63.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Legends of St. Augustine.
Legends of St. Augustine.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
and there's more. There's more out there that we haven't even got to, that we're just touching on, but we got to move on. We got to talk about how great our sponsors are right now.
Hey, once again, our sponsors, these guys make what we do possible. Mm-hmm. Look at it. It's coming into holiday season. Get downtown and go to the City Gates Distillery, and please go to St. Augustine Distillery.
Yeah.
The guys are wonderful. The tour of the St. Augustine
Tasting
Distillery
tours.
is incredible. It's incredible. The bourbon is to die for. They make beautiful, beautiful gin. Beautiful. The peanut butter whiskey.
Oh.
It's incredible.
Yeah. We had the cinnamon last week.
But the cinnamon's great.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah. Look at these guys, and what they're doing for the town is wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Giving back. I mean, Philip McDaniel since he moved here, he's been a part of it. He's embraced the city of St. Augustine.
He has, yeah.
And some people come here and don't really grab a hold of it right. They complained about, we did it differently up there.
Yeah, sure you did.
Okay. Okay, then why are you here? So Philip is not that guy. Philip's the guy who's kind of says, hey, why don't we try and do this and make things better?
Yeah, he's a classy guy.
Classy guy. Appreciate you, Philip. Another classy guy, Chris Cheshire, 900 degree pizza and pasta.
Just right by St. Augustine High School.
Right there on Lewis Speedway, that little strip joint just past the high school.
Yeah.
Great pizza, amazing sauce. And if you're not a pizza person, they have all different Italian
They have all
foods.
different.
Yeah.
Look, I turned my brother-in-law, who lives over by right down the side of Sebastian Middle School. I said, Joe, get over there. See this. He's addicted. It's great pizza.
It's great pizza. All right. Abare, Kresge and Associates, best accountants in town. I don't know if I need to say any more. They are the best accountants in town.
Yeah.
So,
No question. That's it.
I wouldn't even think about using anybody else. So if I win the lottery, my first call is to Billy Abare.
Yeah. Where do I put my money, Billy?
Yeah. Billy, no, you're coming with me. We're going to Tallahassee together.
Get the check.
All right.
The check.
The Beacon Listening Room.
The best music place on the island. I go there all the damn time. It's a wonderful place for a drink. The food is great. The staff is great.
Yeah.
And look, it's right next door to Gypsy.
Yeah.
Look, iconic food in this town.
Yeah.
Gypsy chicken. Gypsy chicken.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's something that St. Augustine is known for.
My favorite app is called the Cheese Spendini.
Cheese Mendini?
Spendini. Spendini.
I am not familiar with this, sir.
It's a thin, lightly fried cheese with a really cool creamy sauce over top of it.
You had me at lightly fried cheese.
So good. So good. All right. Meehan's Irish Pub.
Best Irish bar in America? I'll argue.
I can tell you right now, it's the best Irish bar I've ever been to. I have not been to Ireland.
I've been to a lot of Irish bars.
Yes.
I've been to Irish bars all over the fucking world.
I wonder why. I wonder what that flag means behind you.
Meehan's is incredible. Great. The Guinness is incredible. The food is incredible. The burgers are absolutely to die for. 3 bars in one. The location is incredible. The view. The fucking view.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. All right. St. Augustine Pirate Museum. They have over 800 artifacts. Authentic artifacts.
Yeah.
You flip it over, it's not going to say made in China.
Nope. The real thing.
Authentic. They have one of the oldest, if not the oldest, Jolly Roger.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
It's just the attention to detail, the care. Like, these guys really care. I have been to the Pirate Museum 3 times this year.
Yeah. No, I think that's beautiful.
Because I love the fucking place. And my kids like it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a wonderful
I think
place.
I need to go this week because I have not been in about I haven't been in about a year.
Yeah, you do. You need to go.
I think it's been about a year.
And if you have kids, bring them to the Pirate Museum. It's amazing.
I think Ty and I went last year around his birthday, and his birthday was Tuesday. So happy birthday, Ty. He turned 20 on Tuesday. Our youngest son, Blake's brother. And he loves the Pirate Museum too. So I think Ty and I need to make a trip.
I think so.
So what we got now is the history of comedy.
History of comedy.
I'm going to let you lead off.
Okay, so
Because I think you did more research on this than I did.
history of comedy. All right, so I'll give you just briefly. The word comedy comes from the Greeks, as all these things do. And basically, the father of comedy, the prince of comedy, the original was a fellow called Aristophanes.
Okay.
425 BCE.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Wrote 40 different plays. 11 of them still survive. He's actually responsible for Socrates going on trial and Socrates killing himself because he wrote a satirical attack on Socrates called The Clouds. He was hated by rulers in Athens, satirist, took the piss, made fun of people, had a great time. And that's where it all starts.
But didn't Socrates have the ability to walk out? But Socrates was like, you know what? I feel it's... Because Socrates didn't feel like this was the end for him.
No, he didn't feel like it was the end, yes.
Yeah. So Socrates, they actually would leave his jail door open.
Should have walked.
And he's like, nah, it's going to work out.
Yeah, it didn't.
It didn't work out. It didn't work out, Socrates.
It did not work out so
We're
great.
supposed to be a brilliant man.
But we're going to skip really, really far ahead.
Yeah, we just
and
jump
suddenly
right
turn up in the early 20th century in America.
Yeah. And
Okay.
that's where I'm going to jump in.
All right, jump in, sir.
All right. So my first guy was William Claude Dunkerfield.
Great name. No idea who the fuck you're talking about.
He was a juggler.
Right.
He juggled and he told jokes and he juggled and he was kind of a philosopher of his time. And he was considered at one time the world's greatest juggler. But
Okay.
people don't know him as William Claude Dunkerfield.
Because jugglers don't really stay with people, do they? Mm-mm. No.
He became W.C. Fields.
W.C. Fields.
A man known for drinking and talking to Mae West and doing these things and making the movies and doing all these things. But W.C. Fields, a lot of his stick was how he was very poor and he grew up in an orphanage, and he didn't. It was his stick.
Yeah.
He actually, he grew up in Pennsylvania. Family was middle range.
Okay.
But he got so into the juggling thing, he started going with, what was it, Ziegfeld's...
Ziegfeld's Follies.
Follies.
Yeah.
All right. So him and another gentleman who I think could be the most brilliant comedian, philosopher, stand-up setter is Will Rogers.
Okay, Will Rogers.
They actually were on tour together for a brief time.
Imagine those
And Will
conversations.
Rogers was where how he started.
No.
He was a ropesman.
Seriously?
He would talk while doing the lasso in the rope. So a lot of it, like if you go back and you go to old films of Will Rogers, when they were in Ziegfeld,
Yeah.
W.C. Fields, because William Claude Dunkerfield really isn't selling anything.
Yeah, it's really not.
So W.C. Fields was a juggler, and Will Rogers was a ropesman.
Superb.
Yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. W.C. Fields, one of his famous lines was, "It was a woman who drove me to drink, and I haven't had the decency to thank her yet."
Yeah. Well, I think my favorite line from him is the reason he doesn't drink water. He says, "I don't drink water. Fish fucking it."
Fish fucking it. So a lot of these guys were part of that vaudeville circuit, right? Mm-hmm. So I know what vaudeville is, but I never knew what vaudeville meant.
Yes.
And so I looked it up. It's a French word, and it literally means sounds or voices of the city. And so vaudeville, every single act, you'd have music, you'd have dancing, you'd have magicians.
It was the original variety show.
Right, and it was voices of the city.
Yeah.
So the first guy I want to talk about is Frank Fay, considered to be one of the original stand-up comics in America.
Okay.
Not a name everybody remembers.
Yeah.
And the reason they don't remember him...
And he didn't have a stick. He just stood there and talked.
Because he was a fucking dreadful human being. He was...
Miserable.
A fascist, he was a Nazi, he was an anti-Semite, he was abrasive, he was a wife beater, he was an alcoholic, and everybody fucking hated Frank Fay. However, he was really funny. Mm-hmm. At the height of his career, he used to MC and he used to do stand-up at the Palace Theatre in New York. Frank Fay in the early 1920s was making $17,500 a week.
Wow.
A week in the 1920s.
Just to tell jokes and
Just
be
to tell
evil.
jokes. And yeah, he was married to Barbara Stanwyck.
Okay.
And there is a story that the movie A Star Is Born, the original, 1937, and we know it's been remade with Chris Christopherson, Barbara Streisand, and Lady Gaga, right? The original
Bradley.
apparently is based on their marriage because he was famous, she was a nobody, and suddenly her star just
flew
way past him. But my favorite thing, I got a couple of things, like universally hated by everybody. Mm-hmm. So Milton Berle said about Frank Fay, he said, you could count his friends on the missing arm of a one-armed man.
Wow. That's like Ty Cobb of comedy.
Yes. And they hated him. Like, he was such a dreadful human being that he was done by the age of, maybe 40 or 45 because he was such a shit person. Yeah. Like, in every aspect of his life.
He was still married to Stanwyck, so it didn't matter.
Well, she divorced him and all that stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, he was one of the original stand-up comics. He would get up in front of the curtain at the Palace Theatre and tell jokes for 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. $17,500 a week in the 1920s. Wow. A week.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy money.
Crazy money.
All right, and you and I, you do stand-up. I do.
I've done some stand-up, yeah.
You do stand-up, or you've done stand-up, and you actually have won honors for your stand-up, like from Folio magazine and some of those things.
Misguided people, yes.
Weren't you like a couple years named stand-up comedian in North Florida?
I might have been something along those lines, yeah.
So you do stand-up. You can appreciate what it is to do stand-up. I can't do what you do, stand there and give jokes. Mine is all about reaction and counter reaction. And if someone, like, I have a microphone in my hand, if no one really says anything to me, I'm not that funny. But if you come at me, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know if I could ever do stand up, but I mean, how does it come to be, like, when you're writing jokes, like, or do you just tell stories of your life? Like, when I tell stories of DeLand, and my parents happen to be in town right now, so they can verify some of my stories. Yeah. Not as many as my friends can, but they can verify some of my stories. It sounds so ridiculous. When you tell stories of Ireland, it probably sounds equally ridiculous.
Well, I think it's, I think a shitty childhood helps.
Yeah. I think it does.
And I think
I think being poor helps.
I think poverty helps as well. Yeah. And I think a fair degree of the absurd, but it's storytelling. At the end of the day, all great stand-up comedians are storytellers.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And it's truth to power as well.
Who's your, and I know we're getting off topic because we're supposed to do the history. Who's your all-time favorite comic?
My all-time favorite comic is a guy called Bill Hicks.
Okay. Is he one of yours?
He's one of the guys.
Okay. So tell me about Bill Hicks.
So Bill Hicks, he was from Valdosta, Georgia.
Okay. I almost went to Valdosta State.
So Bill Hicks, he was William Melville Hicks. Melville Hicks from Valdosta, Georgia. He died. He was 32 or 33 when he died. Early 90s, 94. He had pancreatic cancer.
Oh.
He was a philosopher. He was really fucking funny. His family were all Southern Baptists. He made fun of religion. He made fun of politics. He was a chain smoker. He loved mushrooms. He loved the psychedelics. He came up through like the sort of Houston School of Comedy. Rodney Dangerfield helped him early on in his career. He was on Letterman a lot, but he was really controversial. Like his very last appearance on Letterman is the only time Letterman cut an entire person out of a show.
Wow.
And Letterman only showed the thing 25 years after Hicks was dead, because what Hicks was doing, it was a pro-choice comedy bit, and so it was too controversial for the time.
Yeah.
But he was an amazing, but he was very, very, very big in Ireland and England in the late 80s, early 90s. Mm-hmm. And he just had this delivery about him. And I remember one of my favorite things I ever saw Bill Hicks do was he talked about coming out of a nightclub in Alabama and coming outside, and he goes, and I grew up in Valdosta, fucking Georgia. I know what this place is about.
Yeah.
And he goes, bunch of good old boys waiting around in the pickup trucks, and they're like, you told that story in there about our Lord Jesus Christ. We didn't appreciate that. And he looks around and he goes, they got the baseball bats, the Confederate flags, and he goes, you boys all Christian? And they went, hell yeah, we are. And he went, forgive me. He said, By the time they figured out what to do, I was in the truck and gone.
He was already gone. And
if you don't know who he is, he had HBO specials. He's so good. But everybody knows who Dennis Leary is, right?
Yes.
Dennis Leary stole everything he ever did from Bill Hicks. Dennis Leary's famous stand-up.
Doesn't give him credit for it.
Oh no.
Oh.
And comics hated Leary. Bill Hicks forgave him because he was friends with Leary. But Dennis Leary's famous stand-up, No Cure for Cancer, is literally ripped off word for word from Bill Hicks.
And comedians do that a lot.
Oh, but this is disgraceful. And at the end of his life, when he was dying of cancer, somebody said to Hicks, because he loved smoking, he fucking loved smoking.
Yeah.
And he had to give up smoking because he had pancreatic cancer. And somebody said, Bill, why did you give up smoking? And he said, just to see if Dennis would as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah. He was great. He was relentless, dangerous. If you can find Bill Hicks, Hicks.
YouTube it.
Magnificent.
And see, my guy is Carlin.
Yeah.
George Carlin just was such a free thinker. And the one thing I love about comedy, and I think some people get really mad at me. I think some of the smartest people in the world are comedians.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
I don't think it's scientists. I don't think it's doctors. I think it's comedians. They're able to look at the world and go, let's just turn it here.
Well,
let's just turn it a little bit.
It's truth.
The person to me that did that the best was Carlin. I mean, he just would take a situation and go, why don't we put this with this? And it's like putting like a chef with a recipe. And that's the beauty I love about comedy is how they get to there. I always tell Mike Davis, who's got a show.
Yeah.
I said, there's two types of people. There are people that are funny and people that think they're funny.
Yeah.
All right? And you just got to figure out which one you are. And if you just think you're funny, you still think you're funny. You think you're on this side. So I remind him all the time, he's the one that thinks he's funny. But it's being able to twist a situation and make you look at it like, okay, I'm holding my hand like this, but look at the back of my hand from there. And that's what a great comedian can do.
If you look at Carlin's routines now from the early 70s, they are as fresh. You could put him on today and you think he's talking about what's happening today.
Oh, yeah.
The guy was light years ahead of his time. Light years ahead of his time.
Yeah. And another person that I just admired, and he was just amazing, and unfortunately it's sad how his life ended, was Robin Williams.
Ah, yeah. I saw him in Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. I got to see him live in Jacksonville.
I never saw him.
Yeah, he was impossibly funny. Impossibly funny.
Yeah.
Like you just could not get it back. Once he got you, you were fucked. Like I probably missed 30 minutes of the show because I'm annihilated. I'm laughing so hard and I can't.
You can't breathe.
I can't stop. And every time I almost get it back, I'm gone again.
So is that the funniest live show you've ever seen?
Funniest live, no, Chris Rock. I've seen Chris Rock twice.
Stephen Wright was mine.
Stephen Wright.
Yeah, he was mine. He was mine. He was mine. So what? Like you're into comedy. You talked about Hicks. Which comedian do you think kind of influenced your act the most, or were you completely not attached to any of them?
I would think.
Like delivery or anything.
I would think Bill Hicks because of the philosophy side of his way of looking at things, and he was very droll as well.
Yeah,
that was great. Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld. I cannot believe how funny the man is.
Yeah,
like his delivery.
He's another guy, just brilliant guy who created a dynasty out of nothing.
He's still to this day the only comedian I've ever seen who says, "I'm going to tell you a joke," and then he tells you, and he goes, "Oh, this is the first joke I ever told," and then he explains why it's funny. Then he tells you the joke, which you see coming, and it's still fucking funny.
It's still funny.
I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
There was guys in Ireland as well. They're just funny.
Yeah.
Do you ever see the show Derry Girls? Okay. If you go home, Derry Girls, Netflix, Derry. Derry Girls, funny show, really fucking funny. But the dad on Derry Girls is an Irish comedian called Tommy Tiernan. And Tommy Tiernan stand-up, I don't know if it translates, but in Ireland, it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just dark and irreverent and wrong.
Perfect.
Yeah, he does a whole thing
That's perfect.
about Ireland hosting the Olympics.
Yeah.
And he's like, fuck it, let's give them all the drugs. Like, if somebody wants to run the 100 meters,
let him go.
If he wants to run the 100 meters in half a second, fucking let him.
It's more entertainment for us.
Right. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
And I couldn't let this go before the show. We only got like a minute and a half left. Abbott and Costello, they are by far my favorite comedian teams besides us on Bollox.
Yeah.
But Abbott and Costello to me is kind of who I grew up with. It was like when first got cable and you got to see all the Abbott and Costello.
Bud Abbott and Lou Costello. Yeah.
And it's funny because Bud Abbott filled in for Lou Costello's partner in a vaudeville act. It just happened by happenstance. And Abbott happened to be there. And Abbott was such a straight man. Like Lou Costello's family said, you got to drop your other guy, and that's your guy. Because Costello was the funny man.
Yeah.
He was the clown.
Yeah.
But they just happened to be on the same vaudeville show, and Costello's partner didn't show up. and that's how the two of them spent 22 years together.
It's like Lou Gehrig, man.
Yeah. Wally Pipp.
Wally Pipp.
Wally Pipp. But I mean, as far as comic duos, who is yours? Were you a Bud Abbott and Lou Costello or Three Stooges?
Laurel and Hardy.
So
we saw a shitload.
Yeah.
We saw a shitload of Laurel and Hardy and the Marx Brothers when I was growing up in Ireland. My dad loved Laurel and Hardy and the Marx Brothers.
Yeah. Which one was your favorite? I'm Harpo.
Groucho
is brilliant. Groucho is brilliant. Harpo was probably the best at the physical comedy stuff, but Groucho was brilliant.
Physical comedy for me, Buster Keaton or Harold Lloyd. Buster Keaton folding the fucking chair, the deck chair, is as good as it gets.
Prohibition Kitchen, and they're not one of our sponsors, but they probably should be. They show Buster Keaton movies.
Yeah, all the time
over on the side, and like they might have like the Vikings game here.
Yeah,
but in the middle they got Buster Keaton going, and I can't take my eyes off of it.
No, it's him
and Charlie Chaplin to me, are the two that I look to for physical comedy.
Yeah,
and they did all their own stuff.
They did everything.
They would like walk on top of a train and think nothing of it. I was like, oh my gosh, you're the richest man in Hollywood.
Yeah. I would like to revisit it because this is the influence, what they've done, not just in comedy, but their influence extends so far beyond the realm of comedy, not just in film, but in society, in politics. They changed everything. Charlie Chaplin changed everything.
Yeah. Oh, he did.
Everything.
He did. So he made being funny cool.
Yeah.
Well, you and I would not ever have a girl.
And I will say this.
If being funny wasn't cool.
For those of you who don't know this, Robert Downey Jr., before he was Iron Man, was Charlie Chaplin. And that's a hell of a movie. Yeah. Hell of a movie.
That's a great movie.
We're getting the wind-up sign.
All right. Blake's saying he's ready to go home. I want to say thank you again to all our amazing sponsors. Wonderful show.
Thanks, guys.
When we go over by 3 minutes, I know we had a lot to talk about. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. If you would, please share.
Yeah.
When you see us, share every single time. We're trying to get our sponsors out there and their names taken care of and support our sponsors. They're just wonderful.
Yeah, please do when you're downtown, particularly this weekend. It's Night of Lights. Go into all these local places.
Yes, check them out. They're amazing people. All right, this is Bollox Talks and Tangents. We appreciate you guys, and we'll be back next week.